Hello and welcome to the webinar that provides guidance on local improvement plans. This webinar is put on by the Division of School Improvement. We are here to support districts that have campuses that are identified for improvement under state or federal accountability. If you have any questions about the guidance in this webinar or anything related to school improvement, please shoot us an email at sidivision@tea.texas.gov. All right, so we'll begin by talking about what a local improvement plan or a LIP is and who is required to prepare this. So a local improvement plan is a plan that is locally developed and maintained by the district that's meant to address areas of low performance on a campus. These plans are not required to be submitted to the agency unless we request it, and this is for federal accountability only. So who's required to prepare these plans? Campuses that received an additional targeted support or targeted support identification under federal accountability are required to develop and maintain this local improvement plan. There is a PDF of these slides on our website where you can access that list of 2024 campuses that are identified under federal accountability. And you should have also received an email from members of our team in the Division of School Improvement notifying you of these campuses. Local improvement plans are only for the campuses that are identified for additional targeted support and targeted support. If you have any campuses that were identified for comprehensive support and improvement, CSI campuses, these campuses have more rigorous interventions, including developing a targeted improvement plan that is submitted to the agency. And more information about those types of interventions can also be found on the School Improvement website. And if you have questions about how a campus was identified as additional targeted support, or even comprehensive support, Chapter 10 of the 2024 Accountability Manual outlines how these identifications are determined. All right, so what are the requirements of a local improvement plan? First of all, I want to start with a little bit of logistics here. Districts have flexibility to develop and update this plan in any format that they choose. There's not a specific type of template that is required. Again, the most important thing is that you use a template that would be useful to you, so the district has flexibility there. Per the Texas Education Code, all campuses must develop a campus improvement plan regardless of their rating. And so if a campus that receives an ATS or TSI federal accountability label wants to include the local improvement plan in their campus improvement plan, that is more than fine, as long as the requirements outlined in this guidance are met in that plan. And we will get into what those requirements are in the following slides here. So what has to be included in the local improvement plan? Well, our guidance for what has to be included in this plan really comes from the Effective Schools Framework, or the ESF. So the Effective Schools Framework is intended to give a clear vision of what districts and schools across the state do to ensure excellent education for all students. And so one of these levers in the Effective Schools Framework is around strong school leadership and planning, and that's where we're pulling our guidance from. Strongly encourage folks to visit the ESF website. It's www.texasesf.org to learn more about the Effective Schools Framework. All right, so aligning the local improvement plan to the ESF, what is lever one of the Effective Schools Framework? So strong school leadership and planning, this really has to do with the roles and responsibilities of campus instructional leaders, making sure that they've got clear roles and responsibilities and that they develop, implement, and monitor campus systems and structures to make sure that they are achieving high student outcomes. There are three what we call essential actions in lever one of the Effective Schools Framework. Today, we're going to focus in on essential action 1.3, which is focused plan development and regular monitoring of implementation and outcomes. Right, so there are several key practices under Essential Action 1.3 around focused plan development and monitoring of implementation and outcomes. We'll go through each one of these and talk about what has to be included in a local improvement plan to really meet that key practice. So we'll start with our first key practice in Essential Action 1.3, which is that there is an improvement plan in place with few focused priorities, clear timelines, milestones, metrics, and task owners that address the root causes of low performance. So for our local improvement plan requirements, this means that whatever plan you're using, whatever template you're using, has to have a place where you can give a description of any needs assessment that was conducted by the campus or the district and the results of that needs assessment. You might consider using the Effective Schools framework to guide your needs assessment. ESCs can also provide diagnostics aligned to the Effective Schools framework. If you choose to engage in one of those, you're not required to engage in one of those, but if you choose to, the ESC can help with that. What has to be in this part of the needs assessment, though, is you must address the accountability data that led to the ATS or TSI label. So again, Chapter 10 of the Accountability Manual can support you in learning how your campus was identified, what student groups might have led to the identification, and your TPRS reports can also show the data that you might use to conduct this needs assessment. In the needs assessment section, you also need to describe how and when you engage stakeholders in the development of the local improvement plan. So this could be something like a public meeting. It could be part of your site-based decision-making committee. You just got to tell us how you engage stakeholders in plan development. The local improvement plan must also include a few focused priorities that were identified through the needs assessment that this plan will address. So what does that mean? That could be simply just a statement of an overall strategy that the campus is going to undertake. So for example, it might be that our campus is going to adopt new curriculum and provide training for teachers in internalization of those materials. You might have just, a couple of other things that you might want to list under there, but really making sure that you just have a few priorities that are pretty clear that you want to undertake in this plan. And then the plan must include, for those priorities, milestones, metrics, and timelines. So you need goals that are aligned to the accountability data that led to the federal identification. You need metrics and milestones that really clarify any key actions that need to be undertaken to implement your selected strategy with fidelity. And then you'll want to name any staff that's responsible for implementing or monitoring these strategies. So in this part of the plan, it's just got to be really clear, if you've got that overall statement of your strategy, exactly how you're going to implement that, who's responsible for implementing it, and what are the milestones that those folks need to meet throughout the school year to show that you're implementing that with fidelity. And then ultimately you need student outcome goals that are aligned to the accountability data that led to the label. All right, our second key practice in this essential action is that campus leaders monitor plan implementation and hold task owners accountable for execution of the work. So what this means for the local improvement plan, what it must include is a description of how you monitor the implementation of the plan. So who's responsible for this monitoring? You might want to have one person on the campus or in the district that's responsible for making sure that the plan is updated, make sure that it's being executed on. We'll need a description of how often the plan is monitored, and this description needs to really demonstrate that the plan is being monitored at least once a month. The plan also needs to include what structures are used to update progress and inform stakeholders of progress. So this might be a campus leadership team standing meeting where you update the plan and discuss that progress and make adjustments. Could be, other types of standing meetings, agenda items, essentially something that shows that you are updating the plan and that folks are making decisions about the plan periodically. All right, the plan also needs to show this key practice, which is that campus leaders regularly use data and other evidence to track progress towards intended outcomes. So this means that the local improvement plan needs to include some kind of information about the data sources that campus leaders use to track progress. So for example, are you using interim assessment data, STAR data, observation, walkthrough data? What are the various data sources that you use to track implementation of your strategy and to track that you are getting outcomes from implementing that strategy? And again, those data sources need to align to the goals, metrics, and milestones that you've already established in the plan. The local improvement plan also needs to include fields where you can record the data that's being tracked. So a place where you can have your goals, your metrics, your milestones stated, and then a field where you can report out your actual data. So that way you have a clear picture of whether the strategy is being implemented with fidelity, and a clear picture of whether or not student outcomes are on track. The next key practice under this essential action is around modifying the plan. So if milestones and benchmarks are not met, campus leaders make modifications to reach the required result. So again, this is where when you meet periodically to look at progress towards the plan, if you see that something you're struggling to implement a certain portion of the plan, or maybe you're not getting the outcomes that you hope to get, then you are meeting to discuss and make adjustments to that plan to get things back on track. And so your plan needs to include a place to record any adjustments that might be made when a metric is not met, when something is off track. And finally, our last key practice in this essential action is that data systems exist to track various types of data, including interventions, and the data is regularly reviewed to identify trends and adapt accordingly. So this really just repeats requirements from previous slides, but essentially through the local improvement plan, it needs to be clear that you've assigned the responsibility of monitoring to someone or someones. You've got a plan to regularly monitor that plan and share progress with stakeholders. You've got clear data sources that you're using to track your progress in the plan, and that you've got a place in the plan to record the actual data points compared to sort of your expected data points. All right, finally, I want to talk about local improvement plan submission timelines. So who has to submit this plan and when is it due? So these plans are developed and maintained locally, and in general, most folks will not need to submit this plan to the agency. However, we will request some random plan submissions from these ATS and TSI campuses in around March of 2025. So what does that mean for your timeline? Well, really, the district and campus should be planning as soon as possible and getting these plans in place so that way they can start implementing these plans as soon as possible. But you should plan to complete the development of your plan and really be implementing that plan no later than January of 2025. In February of 25, we will reach out to districts that are selected for these random submissions with further instructions, just how to submit that plan, where to submit it. And then we will review those plans to ensure that they include the elements that were described in these slides. And then we'll be looking for some evidence that the plan is already being implemented and monitored. If you have any questions or need further support on creating or implementing your local improvement plans, please feel free to reach out to our division. Again, it's sidivision@tea.texas.gov. Your Regional Education Service Center, your ESC, may also be available to provide technical assistance on the local improvement plan. Thanks a lot for listening in, and let us know if you need anything.